Okay, everybody, welcome back again to another episode of the Kronos Group Podcast. I am Jerry Brazie, your host of the podcast, and today I've been looking forward to talking to Daniel about what he does. Let me tell you about Daniel Alfon. Daniel joined LinkedIn way back in the early 2000s, which in internet years basically, as he says, makes him a fossil. And like everyone who's been around that long, he's made just about every mistake you can make on that platform. And then he stuck around long enough, I should say, to figure out what actually works. So today, Daniel helps clients get results organically on LinkedIn. This is why I think he was going to make such a fantastic guest, because as I was telling him leading into the conversation that we're having now, that is exactly what so many of us are struggling with. And so he publishes articles, interviews, and advanced strategy for people who want to use LinkedIn properly to build that credibility, the relationships, the opportunity. And the mission is simple for him, and helping people showcase what they can do, the strengths, to people who matter, which is really the thing that all of us struggle with, it seems like, almost daily. You can find his work at danielalfon.com. That's DANIELALFON.com. And of course, the link will always be there in the show notes. And Daniel, fantastic to have you here today, my friend. I appreciate you coming on.
Jerry, what an amazing intro. I'm glad to be part of the Kronos Group Podcast.
Appreciate it. Now, let's start with just the basic question to get a podcast started, which is, prior to LinkedIn in 2004, what got you to that, or what brought you to that point? Give us your background, where you grew up, what you did, those sorts of things. Just let the audience get an idea of what you're about.
Cool. So in 30 seconds, I was born in France. I was raised in Israel. And after 4 years as a high school teacher, I became a training specialist in a high-tech company. And then I became independent. And one day I became a quota-carrying salesperson, and I couldn't reach my quota. It was 2006, because back then it took me a lot of time to understand who the right person is within the organization, Jerry. And LinkedIn showed me that person. And that was the moment I decided to see what's under the hood and to specialize. And then friends start asking you to train their staff. And one day you wake up and you see, this is the main thing I'm doing. Let's drop everything else.
So when it comes to LinkedIn, let's back up a little bit before we get too specific. And as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, as a executive, even as an employee, what if you had to say one thing that we should be looking to get out of or trying to work towards relative to LinkedIn? What's the one thing? I know there's lots, but what's the one thing that we should all be trying for?
Networking.
Okay.
Networking is the key skill that doesn't, if you're an 8-figure entrepreneur, then your networking may be different from a graduate in business school. But for both, networking is the key skill that would impact their careers and their lives decades down the road. The sooner we understand this, the sooner we put energies and resources and time into touching people when we don't need them, because nobody likes it when we only remember them when we need them.
Okay, that makes sense. And so when you joined LinkedIn in 2004, obviously way before what it is today, what did you have wrong early on that most people maybe are still getting wrong today? Or has the algorithm changed so significantly that it's unrecognizable today from what it was in the beginning?
It's different, but I think there's one point I'd like to mention to the Kronos Group podcast audience specifically, which is oriented on business, and that is the sort of metrics we need to look into.
Okay.
If we're into social, then we would look, Jerry, at the LinkedIn metrics, the number of connections, of followers we have, the number of discussions, of mentions, of endorsement, our SSI score, our views. But the truth is that the only metrics that count are our business metrics. We could have a gazillion LinkedIn connections. Unless we're able to translate them into revenues, we have been chasing vanity metrics.
And so then, and this is why I was so interested in this conversation, because as I told you prior to us going live here, I do this, and the multiples of people I've had conversations about this do this also, which is we look at LinkedIn as another social media when we know inherently that it's not that, but we simply don't understand it, I don't think, to the level that we should. And so either out of ignorance or it's complicated, or we just haven't taken the time, whatever it is, it's not the same social media. And I think that's what you're saying as the other, Instagrams and things of that nature.
Thanks. And I think being aware of the fact that LinkedIn is a different beast is already half the solution. You can consider LinkedIn the world's largest business network. It doesn't necessarily have to be called social media. Mm-hmm. Because if we want to, you mentioned Instagram, imagine I would want to become an Instagram influencer and I would not be able to upload content. Could I become successful? Could I be an overnight success on YouTube without uploading videos on TikTok? No, I can't. Mm-hmm. But LinkedIn is a different beast. It's the only large network where you can succeed without sharing anything.
Yes. Okay. Interesting. Let's pull on that thread a little bit.
What is important in our business often are referrals. So when I look people up, often their LinkedIn profile would top the list. When I Google you, then Jerry Brazie, your LinkedIn profile tops the list. It doesn't matter whether you logged in today or 3 weeks ago or 2 years ago. And when I visit your profile, if you and I, Jerry, share a mutual connection, then I would see the name of that person. I see that Josh Elledge is one mutual connection of ours. If I know my network, then I could reach out to Josh and say, Josh, how have you been? There's an amazing guest you had on episode 2350. His name is Jerry. I would like to speak with him. Would you mind making the introduction? Do you know him well enough? Do you feel comfortable making that introduction? And you were a guest on The Thoughtful Entrepreneur, and I imagine Josh would do it. Mm-hmm. But imagine I would see 6 mutual connections. Josh, whom you know, and John and Jane that you don't. When I reach out to them, they will say, Jerry who? No idea. They didn't say anything negative about you, but they were not able to make the introduction because they don't know you well enough or they don't know the other person well enough. So you have to ask yourself a simple question. If you have to pick one, in 3 years' time, Jerry, would you like to be the most connected on LinkedIn or the best connected? And as entrepreneurs, we naturally want both. Mm-hmm. We start with best connected, we know our network, and then people keep saying, hey, you need to have more people. You don't have 500 plus. You need to reach more people. And then at one point, you end up with 2,000 or 5,000 connections thinking you have exposure, but exposure only starts when you have 40K or 50K. So the worst connection strategy would be to be somewhere in between. You don't know all your network. You're no longer best connected. Plus, you don't have a lot of exposure because best connected and most connected are mutually exclusive. You have to pick one for the long term. This is the simplest. I don't want to say it's difficult. It's difficult maybe to implement, but it's not difficult to understand. I know my network. I have probably 90% of my revenues come through referrals. I don't want people to say, I have no idea who this person is. And my
Mhm.
bank account is much better because of that. So
Mhm.
pick one, either most connected or best connected.
It sounds like it comes down to really a social media strategy from brand building, which is if you have a community, I'd rather have a community of 100 people who 90% of them communicate than 1,000 people who only 10% of them communicate.
That's the power of community. That's the power of peer group. And you know a lot about peer groups.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. So to that end, as I was doing research on you, it looks like you focus on organic results, which kind of dovetails out of the conversation we just had, rather than hacks or automation. And I want to ask you about the fundamentals of those, but I have a test case that I'm going through right now. We did as I'm building out the Kronos Group, my latest company for the peer-to-peer network. I ran ads on Instagram and I had pretty good response on Instagram, followers, people that are interested, possible customers, more than I thought I would have. So I was happy with that response. And so then, but we really know that LinkedIn is, I'm looking for $1 to $25 million a year entrepreneur, operator, business owners. That's who I'm looking for. So
Yeah.
then we kind of ran this kind of test to see what kind of feedback we would get. We didn't put a lot of effort into it, and we had a good result on it. So then we look and we move over to LinkedIn, and again, that's literally this was last night as we're staring at LinkedIn, and we come back over to Instagram. And one of the things that happens so often in LinkedIn and Instagram is that I get these automated responses via DMs anytime somebody finds me or I do something different. And regardless of what the DM says, when I see that it's an advertisement or it's automated or it looks like it's written by an AI or it doesn't have a little bit of information in it that tells me that it's something non-automated, man, it better be really, really spectacular for me to not just dismiss it. And I think, as I was, again, back to my question, organic results versus hacks or automation, in that context of what I'm literally going through right now, how would you evaluate that? What would your advice be?
I'm afraid 99% of LinkedIn DM give bad reputation to all the rest of us.
Okay.
DMs have become spam. People who reach out to you and say, we don't know anything about you, but we have the exact solution for your needs.
Yeah, right.
It
Yep.
doesn't make sense. You don't walk into a bar and meet someone and then propose. It doesn't happen. And,
Mm-hmm.
maybe in Disney movies, but not in real business. You need to build trust. What we could do is identify people, entrepreneurs who want to build their business and who are open to help others, because entrepreneurs, as you know, it's a lonely job. We don't have a lot of people we can communicate our troubles with. But if we're part of a peer group, then we see that even if that person is based in Boise, Idaho, and their clients are B2B, whatever, and our clients, I'm in Portland and I'm servicing HVAC, whatever, we could get meaningful advice from someone who doesn't have skin in the game and can tell us the truth without sugarcoating it.
Right. Yes, that's right. And so to that end, our automation to me is, as we just said, a bit of a turnoff. But how does one then build out their LinkedIn profile, I suppose, or their network probably is the better word? How do we get to those? Is there any value in ads from that perspective if it takes that hands-on approach?
Imagine I could give you a ticket to perform on the Super Bowl, or you could get the American Idol final stage, and you would say, no, you know what, Daniel, thank you very much. I'd rather run an ad through that show. It doesn't make sense.
Mm-hmm.
The LinkedIn platform is full of business content. And most people never click on ads on LinkedIn. And some of the clicks are actually bots, which will lead to what you just described. There's no way to start with ads. Ads could become maybe another thing to add, like the 10th element you would add once you have a well-oiled machine, but don't start there. It doesn't make sense.
So on those, then looking for those organic results, it sounds like to me, I have a nephew, Matt, as a matter of fact, that works with me here at the Kronos Group. And years ago, he graduated from college, and I saw that him and some of his friends were commenting on an Instagram post that they could not. They had gone to 3 or 4 job interviews, and they could not find a job. And nobody was talking to them because they didn't have any experience. And they were lamenting that this was happening. And I immediately called him up and I was like, you're bitching about 3 to 4 jobs. Your head's in the wrong spot. You need to be complaining when it's 100 or 150 jobs that you've tried for. You know, you've made 100, 150 contacts. You've gone and done 150 cold calls, those sorts of things. And so I've said that along those lines, like being a cold call salesman door to door, if you can do that job, if you can make a living as a cold call salesman door to door, you can do almost any job on the planet. I mean, that job is as difficult as it gets. So we try to automate that face-to-face kind of networking and communication, but it sounds like so in that context, it sounds to me like you're saying that we need to almost look at LinkedIn like we used to do it in the old days.
Cool. So let me suggest a very simple 3-step formula. The first question is how do we build our presence? So it would be our profile. We'll put it aside. The second would be to decide who we connect with. And the third and most important lead generation method that we would use, Jerry, it would be to know when to leave LinkedIn. Running an advanced search will show us within minutes interesting prospects. If you can identify your prospects, then within minutes you'll find someone interesting. And you can limit the result LinkedIn shows you only to people with whom you share a mutual connection. Imagine I see John Doe and I define him as a good prospect for me. And I see, that you, Jerry, is our mutual connection. Now is the time to leave the LinkedIn platform. LinkedIn doesn't want us to do this, but instead of messaging that prospect and bypassing our mutual connection in our network, the smarter thing to do would be to leave the LinkedIn platform, to communicate with you, to see how you've been, and then to ask you, could you make an introduction? Do you know that person well enough? So the transaction or the action would not happen on LinkedIn. LinkedIn just showed us the name of the person, and the most important name is your name because you are the mutual connection. Build a decent presence, know who to connect with, run an advanced search, and leave the LinkedIn platform. In real life, have a meaningful conversation with your prospect. Get introduced to that prospect. That makes a lot more sense than sending DMs and hoping that he would answer.
So someone comes to you, Daniel, and says, I have this brand, I have this business, I'm building it up. I want to utilize LinkedIn. I was referred to you. What are you telling them?
I'm asking them a lot of questions about their business. You need to know who represents your ideal client. And if you're starting out in business, then maybe you think the whole world is your oyster and you have no clear definition. But if you have sold businesses and if you're a seasoned entrepreneur, you would tell me, my ideal alley is this territory, $5 to $10 million, this and that particular. And then we would see how your marketing works today with no relation to LinkedIn. And lastly, we'll ask, how can the LinkedIn black box help you, Jerry, improve your business results? Say you have a process of a discovery call, someone who wants to join the Kronos Group, I don't want to call it mastermind,
Mm-hmm.
but let's call it the peer group, they would reach out to you and have a conversation. Imagine that LinkedIn could help you boost the number of weekly discovery calls by 30%. The interesting question would not be, has LinkedIn helped me just increase the number of incoming discovery calls? Can I translate or can I convert those new calls into actual members of my community? And if you're happy with these results, then you find the right angle where LinkedIn can help you grow your business. So you have an existing business, you should know who your client, who your ideal prospect is. We look into your business and we try to define where can the LinkedIn addition be the most significant for you.
So to that end, to find those people, we're going back around to we have to put in the work manually to do that, to get the most out of it, or can we find those prospects and those calls via tools within LinkedIn, up to and including advertising?
Of course, I could, run backwards and have my eyes covered and hope to win the marathon, but I don't have to. You don't have to. A simple advanced search. It's free to everyone. You can perform an advanced search, and within 10 minutes you'll find someone interesting. You don't have to overcomplicate it. It will take you a lot of time, Jerry, to really assess whether this is the right prospect for you. And maybe to get the right person to make the introduction will take you hours. I'm not saying it's a 5-minute, there's no silver bullet here. But identifying the person and finding them through LinkedIn, you don't have to use any automation for that. If by chance you see someone, you say, this could be a good prospect, fine. But just learn how to run an advanced search. And before that, be ready to identify and to say who your ideal client is.
Mm-hmm. So to that end, to the ideal client, most profiles, mine included, to me reads like a resume or a sales page, right? Like a sales one page.
Yeah.
So what should people be communicating if they want to be found, right? If I'm the ideal client for someone,
Yeah.
or I'm the ideal vendor for somebody, what should that profile read like? What should we be communicating if we want the right people to pay attention?
Excellent. So my question would be very, very simple. Think of LinkedIn not as your resume, but as a website that needs to convert your ideal reader. Now, back thinking about your nephew. When I'm an employee, then it makes sense, Jerry, to build my profile as an online CV. That's fine. But the minute we turned into entrepreneurs, we don't have to think of our profile as an online CV. Because the questions the Kronos Group prospects ask themselves are not whether you opened the TKM holding in February 1999 or January of 2000, but the businesses you sold, the businesses you created, the importance of building a peer group. This is what could make them understand the power of your offer. So rewrite or reconsider your profile and ask yourself 3 simple questions: who my ideal reader is, what action would I like them to perform? The action could be go to kronosgroup.org. And lastly, am I making it as easy for them to immediately see that this is the action they need to perform? And am I attracting the business owners that have 1 million to 5 million decisions that are willing to help and find 5 or 6 hours a day and also consult with you in order to make their business grow?
Hmm. And so really you want to break down your profile, if I'm understanding you correctly, to what your offer is, to what you're bringing to the table to the extent that you can.
Yes, because we don't have a lot of time, we don't have a lot of attention, and we need to serve the right information in the right order for the right people, knowing that this action would disqualify 99% of other people, but we
Yeah,
don't mind because
right.
that single percent is our ideal market.
Yes, right. Yeah, again, back to I want to talk 10 people that are interested, not 100 people who aren't. Yeah, yeah. So, and that's really fascinating too. Tell me about the algorithm then, from how you understand it. You had mentioned earlier that until you get to 30 or 40,000 connections, you're not. It doesn't really benefit you at all. Let me interpret what I think that means. You tell me where I'm right or wrong. That really, if you have 5,000 connections, you're not getting any benefit necessarily from the algorithm putting you out there to people who may want to see what you're doing.
Absolutely right, because remember, most people visit LinkedIn occasionally. So
Hmm.
when you share something, there's a chance that less than 2% of your network will see it.
Mm.
So 2% of, 2,000 people is 40 people. It's not a lot. But 2% out of 40,000 are 800.
Hmm.
It starts becoming interesting.
Yeah, yeah, that
You
makes
have
sense.
to,
Yeah, I see that.
but it's difficult to veer. It's difficult to change. That's the reason I was asking if you had to pick one. It would take a lot of time to move from best connected to most connected, or the other way around. The benefit of knowing your network is the ability for them to open doors. When you identify the decision maker and you see that you share a mutual connection with that person, you look at the name of a person and you know who that person is. Now, we have a limited bandwidth. Jerry, maybe your bandwidth is 10 times better than mine, but it's still limited.
Hmm.
There's no way most of us can be in touch with 50,000 people and really know what happens in their lives. We can't. How do we know what's important for you? How do we know whether the Portland basketball team is of interest to you, or whether becoming a basketball referee back in the day was an interesting experience for you? We can only know it if we care about that person, and it's easier to have a close knit peer group and not a mass that is not significant enough. If we're in between, we only gain marginal exposure while jeopardizing the quality of our network because we water down and polluted the quality of our network. Pick one.
Yeah, that's fascinating because we live in a world of big numbers, but we equate big numbers to meaning something. And the corollary between business and what we're talking about here relative to LinkedIn is so interesting. When I started my first business, I was really, really good at sales. So much so, my first companies, I did 4, 8, 12, and $14 million a year. That I grew that fast in the first 3 years. Average ticket price was about $7, to give you an idea of how well I knew how to sell. But Daniel, I had one little problem. I didn't know how to sell profitably. It turns out selling profitably is way more difficult than selling, and so if you can sell profitably, that's the magic. In the end, I cut the business back down to $8 million before I grew it back again to $14 million because I had to learn my lessons about how to sell. And I think the corollary between the two things is that I cared at first about that top line number, but you figured out that metric that doesn't really matter. What you figured out is I made more money at 8 million than I did at 14 million the first time. When I went back to 14 million, I made, equal amounts more than I did at 8 million, but I had to learn that lesson the hard way. So I think that's what you're telling us is I'd rather make more with less every single time. And we need to view LinkedIn that way. What's the quality of that connection that we have with that person rather than have 5,000 connections?
Absolutely, because the parallel would be running an $8 million company and not being able to get paid.
Yes, right. So is that why a lot of people, again, I haven't done anything on LinkedIn for the most part. A lot of people uh, tell me that LinkedIn is dead. It doesn't work anymore, and for building out a brand or building out a business. And I always chalk it up. Anytime I don't understand anything, I think something doesn't work, I think it's because I don't know how to work, not it doesn't work. And so that's why I was interested in this conversation. I've been told that so many times, and I have experienced the frustration of LinkedIn so many times that I get of the opinion this thing just doesn't work either. From your perspective, what do you think we mean by that? And what I think you've kind of talked about what reality is, but just dovetail that into reality.
Cool. So the rumors about LinkedIn's death are a bit premature, to quote Mark Twain. Since we started this chat, thousands of new people signed up. Jerry, every second, 3 people sign up. 1,400,000,000 members, most of the growth outside of the US, and with managers and decision makers in all 14,200 companies. At one point, LinkedIn will die, but we will all see it. It doesn't happen now, and I don't think it will happen very soon. Mind you, if I say that LinkedIn is dead because I try to spam more people and I didn't succeed, then that's what I meant when I said LinkedIn was dead. LinkedIn is dead if you're trying to automate or to spam more people. Because initially the novelty of getting something like that would be interesting. But once you get 55 a day, you're no longer interested in reading these.
Mm-hmm.
You ignore
That's
them.
right. Yes.
If your profile is decent and if you connect with people you know well, you don't have to operate on LinkedIn. You run a search and then you go to your golf club, or you pick up the phone, or you go to a conference, or you speak with someone who can make an introduction and find someone who could be a good prospect for you, and they will listen to you because someone vouched for you. Someone said, Daniel, you need to speak with Jerry because your business is not profitable and you're working too hard. He could help you out. And if I trust that person, I would come and I would listen to you. I would be less price sensitive. I would be less suspicious because someone I trusted said, I think you need to listen to that person. And I would come open. If that's done well, then LinkedIn is alive and kicking.
Why do we not know this? Why do we not hear this more? This sounds like the opposite of ads being used. You know, the whole world is going. I mean, I think there's going to be people listening to this are going to go, wait a minute, this can't be true because Daniel's talking about how the world used to work. You know, you and I both predate the internet. When I built those companies, that was all shoe leather and phone calls and a lot of time in the car and a lot of driving for short meetings to only be turned down. And then 2 hours back and all of those things. Daniel, it's supposed to come to my door. I'm supposed to sit at this desk, a television screen, monitors in front of me on all sides, make ads, do a video, send out some sort of newsletter, and the work just comes to me. Daniel's telling me I need to do something 180 degrees the opposite direction that anybody under 40 years old is not going to recognize. Just to be clear, that's what you're saying.
Let's find a way out for the young entrepreneurs here, part of the Kronos Group. There is a way for you to use LinkedIn differently. And that is, Jerry, to focus on the problem. So let's say I struggle as an entrepreneur, but I don't see the value of a peer group. Because from me, maybe I see this as, one guru speaking with thousands of people, and I'm not interested in that. So, pardon me. What you could do is ask, what is a peer group and how could it help you? And what are the pros and cons of masterminds versus peer group? And this would be good if you're struggling with A, B, and C. And this would be good if you're struggling with X, Y, and Z. If you can enter the conversation where you're thinking about the problems, the way your prospects would formulate those problems to their friends, then you can educate them. And Jerry, you would move them one baby step from point A to point B. Not pushing our offer, but educating them. The sort of content that would work on LinkedIn is top of funnel, educational, and evergreen. Because I could ask that question 6 months ago and 6 months down the road, and it doesn't need to change. And the good thing is that if you educated me and I moved, thanks to you, from point A to point B, and you show me that there's a whole point C and D, now you don't have to sell, I want to buy.
Interesting.
So,
Yeah.
educate your prospects about the solutions and guide them, bring them a bit closer to you, help them either disqualify themselves, this is not for me, fine. Or that sounds interesting, let's try to learn more. And when they want to learn more, you become part of the solution.
So if you were building, if you opened a brand new account today and you're selling widgets or you're selling your service for whatever it might be, and you opened a brand new account, no one knows anything about you. And let's say somebody said, I don't know, build X number amounts of, I don't know, somehow to gauge credibility in 90 days on LinkedIn. How are you going to monetize into a sale if you even could? I don't know. Give me the answer to this question. Maybe it's not even possible. What would you do in those first steps if you're given 90 days to put something together to actually try to make a sale? I think you've laid it out, but I want to make sure that everybody hears that.
Cool. So I think it was Abe Lincoln that said if I had 6 hours, for 5 hours, I would prepare my axe or something along those lines. Mm-hmm. I believe that we have a real life network. Prior to opening our account, maybe your network has a lot of real estate executives. Maybe my network is different, but we have a real life network. Some of these people are on LinkedIn. Maybe 20, maybe 200, maybe 200,000. This is my audience. I can connect with people I know well. I can do it within one day, and business will come through those people. A common misconception is that I have to find someone new and then tell him why I'm the best solution since sliced bread. I don't have to. Chances are, if I leverage my existing network better, my bank account would grow. Not my LinkedIn connections, but my bank account would grow. So you don't have to focus on those metrics. Focus on your real life network. And if your real life network is on LinkedIn, then by all means, identify them. See if they have someone interesting they can introduce you to. And more important than everything, try to help them when you don't need anything from them. So down the road, if you pick up the phone or if you message that person in 6 months, they will not look at you and say, again, Daniel, like you only contact me when you need something. I don't think I have time for you. Birthdays, special occasions are excellent reminders of how we can reach out to people and maybe invest 40 seconds more. When is your birthday, Jerry?
January 6th, a couple of days ago.
Wow, excellent.
Yeah.
So January 6th, instead of just shooting a cookie cutter happy birthday, because by the time you see 423 of those, you're no longer interested. If your network is important to you, go to that person's profile. See if they have any if they changed, whether their business pivoted, whether they shared something in the last 6 months. If not, go to your email, run a search through their email, read the previous threads, and shoot them a short message asking them how they've been and asking something specific that showed them that you know about what happens with them and that you care. And 95% of people will not do this because this takes maybe 60 seconds or maybe 5 minutes. But if we don't have those 60 seconds for that person, then maybe we don't need to be connected on LinkedIn. Your connections should count.
That makes sense. So again, just doubling down on the network the way that we used to do it. Let me move over more to the algorithm. What part has AI played with LinkedIn? In years past, and it seems to be changing rapidly. It was all about SEO and it was about keywords and things of that nature. Now we have, at least relative to the AI companies, they're looking at the content differently. They're reading it differently. Keywords, while they matter, don't matter quite so much. SEO still does, but I think the definition of AI or SEO has changed relatively quickly and significantly. What part, if you agree with all of that, and what part does all of that play in LinkedIn?
Yes, I agree. The single most important change we can see is that people who shared very little start producing lengthy manifestos. And trouble is, when you know that person and you see what they shared and you say, this is not Bob. These are not the words Bob would use. I spoke with that person. I sat next to that person. And this is not his style. If there's a gap between the way we perceive that person and the sort of content they produce on LinkedIn, then our perception is stronger than what we see on LinkedIn. AI has become a great leveler. We can produce perfectly written texts, but many of them are really soulless.
Mm-hmm.
Someone else could have written them, and they don't sound like us. And the funny thing is that only when you stutter or when you're not sure of the answer do I believe you, do I see you as human. Because if you are on the stage and you know the answer to all those questions, then I can look at you and say, wow, that's amazing, but I would never become someone like you, so this won't work out. Being able to say the challenges that you have and to appear vulnerable is something that could differentiate entrepreneurs from AI content producer. And it's the same ability that will help me get more value from a peer group. Because if I'm not able to share and to admit the problems and the mistakes I made, then the group is less likely to help me. But if I come open-minded and I can share those, I would get a lot of valuable insights from my peers.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Yeah, I mean, like anything, but it just keeps coming back around to the network. Let me ask you. Let's do a little speed round in the last few minutes that we have left here. I like to do this at the end. No real overthinking. A few questions for you, and give me an idea right off the top of your head. I think you've covered some of these, so this may be redundant. But the number one question that I wrote down was the biggest LinkedIn mistake you still see daily. .
Not having a connection strategy, sir.
one thing people should remove from their profile immediately?
Open to work.
The most misunderstood LinkedIn feature?
Connect or follow.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And again, the dovetails. We've covered this so well that the questions I put together don't really. We already talked about. I think I can answer myself. What matters more, content or conversations?
Conversations with people who matter are important. If content can help us discover those people, then fine. But content is a means; it's not the end.
And the clearest sign someone is using LinkedIn wrong.
When you ask them about the way they translated their LinkedIn metrics into real revenues, and they look at you sort of, Jerry, what did you ask me?
Yeah, right. Right. All of the treating it like a social media. So for professionals who hate posting but want results, you're saying that it's not a social media from that perspective, and that posting isn't nearly as important as recruitment of a connection that you make with people that has value to it is much more important than posting every day what you're doing.
Yes. If some of our audience here like to post and like to share, then I don't mean to stop them. But if the most important reason we want to share is we think it will help us, it won't work for most of us.
Yeah,
the question we should ask is, will I still share this if I got no like and no view? Is it important for me for all the world to know that this is what I stand for? And this would limit dramatically the number of shares. And there were years I hardly shared anything, and my bank manager was very happy.
Yeah,
there's a whole process of share more, and you have to share more, and this actually alienates our network. Nobody wants to hear from us on a daily basis on LinkedIn. I'm sorry, maybe it's different for you, but for most of us, plebeians, we don't want to see that every day.
Mm-hmm. So why doesn't LinkedIn advertise more of what they are? My reaction, my last question for you, my reaction to what we've just talked about is that what I and so many, and I'm going to say a vast majority of people think LinkedIn is not what LinkedIn is, but yet we see advertising from LinkedIn all of the time. We're inundated with advertise on LinkedIn, right? What I perceive LinkedIn to be, you've just described to me something 180 degrees differently than what it is. Why is that?
The power of the purse is that LinkedIn's revenues come from companies paying for jobs and for ads. So LinkedIn will not educate. LinkedIn is not very good in educating their users in general, I'm afraid. There's no, in a regular world, there would not be a business such as mine.
Mm-hmm.
If the system is user-friendly, then you don't need anyone to help you navigate the system. And everything we mentioned, I think, is pure business 101. But many entrepreneurs, when they log into LinkedIn, they think they need to become someone else or invent a personality. I'm sorry, you probably have a personality. All you have to do is extend that personality into LinkedIn.
Yeah,
you
that's
don't have to become someone else.
Right. Yeah, there's always that idea of what we need to be rather than who we are, especially in social media.
You're right.
Yeah. If you guys like Daniel's approach, obviously you can tell I try to have people on the podcast who have lived it and who have done it and who have experienced it, not somebody that read a book or watched a video and then is going to come give us their 2 cents. Obviously, Daniel's experience is grounded in time and reality, no hype or tricks. The dude just understands how it works. So if you are on LinkedIn like I am, and you are frustrated like I am, or you feel like you're putting in effort and you're not getting any traction like I am, clearly Daniel's work is worth paying attention to, and you can go find him at Daniel Alfon, DanielAlfon.com. And again, I'll put it in the link in the show notes so that everyone can go and check him out. Daniel, as we go out, tell the listeners what you can do for them outside of your website. Is there another way to get a hold of them, or for them to get a hold of you?
The website is the best place to go. It has all sorts of resources and guides and downloads at a full store, and I reply to people. All they have to do is I listen to the Kronos Group podcast with Jerry, and I have a question, and I'll do my best to answer.
Fantastic. And to everybody listening, obviously the world is changing very quickly. What we see in front of us is not always what it appears to be. Platforms change, and not every platform is the same. That's obvious. But the fundamentals, here's what I'm taking away from what Daniel has said today. The fundamentals don't change in business. As much as we'd like to think that they do, what he just talked about is how we used to do business full time up till about 10 or 15 years ago. So Daniel, fantastic. I appreciate you coming on. Thank you, sir.
It's been a pleasure, Jerry. Thank you very much.